right. So today we're going to be diving into something pretty fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Insect farming climatization.
Okay.
So you've probably heard about insect farming, right, as like a sustainable protein source.
Right, yeah.
But we're going way beyond the basics here. We're
Yeah.
really going to be looking at the high-tech world of like creating this perfect climate for raising these little critters.
Yeah, it's definitely more complex than just like setting up a thermostat in a room.
Oh, absolutely.
These creatures are very particular when it comes to temperature and humidity.
It's almost like they're Goldilocks, right? Everything has to be just right.
Exactly.
And the source material that we're diving into here really highlights that, even slight variations can impact like their growth and their reproduction and all that.
Yeah, for sure. Like take black soldier fly larvae, for example.
Okay.
These are a really popular choice for insect farming, and they really thrive at temperatures between 28 and 32 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
With like high humidity.
Okay.
Anything outside of that range, and you start to see problems.
So maintaining that sweet spot is like mission critical.
Yeah.
But here's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
The source material kind of emphasizes how these ideal conditions, they're not static.
Right.
They change throughout the insect's entire life cycle.
Yeah.
So you can almost imagine having to constantly adjust the thermostat in a room full of tiny little furnaces that keep switching on and off.
That is a great analogy.
Right.
So like the substrate that the larvae live in,
Okay.
it often is organic waste, and that has its own temperature and moisture levels
Oh, wow.
that fluctuate.
Okay.
And then on top of that, the larvae themselves generate heat as they eat and grow.
Wow.
So it's this constantly shifting puzzle that insect farmers have to try and solve.
So I'm starting to understand why this climatization technology is such a game changer, because instead of constantly chasing these fluctuations, it creates this like controlled environment.
Exactly. And think of it like a super smart thermostat that's constantly monitoring and adjusting the temperature, the humidity, the ventilation, even the lighting.
Oh, wow.
To match every single stage of the insect's development.
So it's like fine-tuning it to meet their needs at every step of the way.
Yeah, and the source even mentions systems that can like anticipate changes before they even happen.
Oh, wow.
By using predictive algorithms.
Really?
That are based on the insect's life cycle and real-time environmental data.
That level of precision is incredible.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, like, what are the real payoffs here?
Sure.
What makes all of this effort worth it?
Well, for one, it dramatically increases yield and efficiency.
Okay.
So insects that are living in their ideal climate, they grow faster, they convert feed more efficiently.
So more bang for your buck, so to speak.
Exactly. But it's not just about quantity.
Right.
It's also about quality.
Okay.
So climate control plays a key role in disease prevention. And the source material really emphasizes how a controlled environment helping prevent outbreaks of harmful pathogens and molds.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like how we as humans try to stay healthy. We wash our hands, we avoid germs.
Yeah.
So it's like the same principle.
Exactly.
A clean, stable environment keeps those insect populations thriving.
And it also leads to like more uniform growth.
Okay.
Which makes processing and packaging the insects easier.
Okay, so let's kind of recap here.
Sure.
We've got increased yield.
Yep.
We've got year-round production because now farmers aren't at the mercy of the weather.
Exactly.
Disease prevention.
Yep.
What other benefits does the source material highlight?
Well, a lot of these modern climatization systems are designed with sustainability in mind.
Okay.
So a lot of them use energy-efficient technologies.
Like what?
Like heat recovery.
Okay.
So that's where the heat generated by the insects is captured and reused to power the system.
Oh, wow.
And smart monitoring.
Okay.
To minimize resource consumption.
So it's really thinking about the whole picture.
Yeah, the source even mentioned systems that can run partially or entirely on solar power.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So we're not just talking about a sustainable protein source. We're talking about sustainable production methods.
Exactly.
Is there a company or a specific technology that stands out?
Yes, the source we're looking at today specifically focuses on a company called Mana Insect.
Okay.
And their Mana Mind technology.
Mana Mind?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Well, they really emphasize cost effectiveness and adaptability as key features.
So it can be implemented in a lot of different settings, from small-scale container farms to large industrial warehouses.
Exactly.
So whether you're a small startup or a large-scale operation, Mana Mind can accommodate you.
Exactly. And the source even provides a URL for their website.
Oh, perfect.
Where you can go and explore the technology in more detail.
We'll be sure to include that in the show notes for our listeners.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're really at the forefront of this whole climatization movement.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, are there any downsides to this level of control over nature?
That's a really important question.
Yeah.
And it's one that researchers are exploring as this technology develops.
Sure.
So while climate control has a lot of benefits,
Right.
there are definitely potential challenges that need to be addressed.
Okay, so let's dig into that a little bit. What are some of these potential drawbacks we should be aware of?
Well, one thing that comes up with the source is energy consumption.
Okay.
So while a lot of these systems incorporate these energy-efficient designs,
Mm-hmm.
they still require a significant amount of power to operate.
Okay.
So it's like a balancing act.
Yeah.
You're trying to minimize the environmental impact of food production,
Right.
but you also have to make sure that the systems that enable it are as efficient as possible.
So it's kind of a trade-off.
Yeah.
We gain control over the environment and
Right.
these benefits that come with that,
Right.
but potentially at the cost of increased energy use.
Exactly. It's a complex issue
Yeah.
with no easy answers, but it's important to remember that even with that energy consumption factored in,
Okay.
insect farming still has a much lower environmental impact
Okay.
than traditional livestock farming.
It's all about perspective
Yeah.
and comparing it to the alternatives.
Exactly. And researchers are constantly working on ways to reduce the energy footprint of these systems.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the source talks about integrating renewable energy sources,
Oh, like what?
like solar and wind power, into climate-controlled insect farms.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I'm also curious about the economic side of things.
Right.
You know, the source mentioned Manna Mind being cost-effective.
Mm-hmm.
But what about that initial investment
Right.
for setting up one of these climate-controlled farms?
Yeah,
Isn't that a huge barrier for smaller operations?
that's definitely a valid concern.
Yeah.
The initial investment for setting up a climate-controlled insect farm can be pretty substantial,
Right.
especially for smaller farms or those just starting out.
Mm-hmm.
But like a lot of technologies,
Yeah.
that cost of implementation is probably going to decrease
Okay.
as the technology becomes more widespread and economies of scale come into play.
So as the demand for insect protein continues to rise,
Right.
we can expect to see these technologies become more affordable and accessible.
Exactly. And it's not just about the technology itself.
Right.
It's about building that whole ecosystem around it.
What do you mean?
Things like providing training and support for farmers,
Okay.
developing best practices for sustainable operation,
Mm-hmm.
and creating markets for insect-based products.
So there are all these different elements that need to come together
Yeah.
to make insect farming a truly viable and scalable solution.
Exactly.
It sounds like there's a lot of work still to be done,
Yeah.
but the potential is definitely there.
For sure.
It's amazing to see how something as seemingly simple as controlling the climate
Mm-hmm.
can have such a ripple effect,
Yeah.
not just on the insect farming itself,
Yeah.
but on our efforts to create a more sustainable food system.
I completely agree. It's a testament to the power of innovation
Mm-hmm.
and the interconnectedness of all these different systems.
Yeah.
Sometimes the smallest changes
Yeah.
can have the biggest impact.
Well said. I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
We have.
We've looked at the science behind insect climatization.
Mm-hmm.
We've looked at the key benefits and some of those potential challenges that lie ahead.
Yeah,
But this is just the beginning of our journey.
exactly.
So in the next part, we'll delve even deeper into this world of climate-controlled insect farming.
Sounds good.
We'll take a closer look at the Manna Mind technology.
Yeah.
We'll explore its unique features
Mhm.
and its impact in the industry.
Okay.
We'll also examine the broader implications of this technology for the future of food production and sustainability.
Great.
So if you're intrigued by what you've heard so far,
Mm-hmm.
be sure to tune in for the next part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
We'll have a lot more fascinating insights and discussions to share.
Looking forward to it.
Welcome back to our deep dive on insect farming climatization.
Thanks for having me back.
You know, as we were wrapping up that last part,
Mm.
I was really struck by just how much this technology is like changing the game for insect farmers.
Oh, for sure.
It's like they've finally got a handle
Mm-hmm.
on one of the biggest variables in agriculture.
Which is?
The
We've
weather.
hired The weather, of course.
You know, with traditional farming,
Yeah.
you're just kind of at the mercy of the elements.
Yeah.
You know, a sudden cold snap heat wave,
Yeah.
it can wipe out your entire crop.
I can, yeah.
But with climate control,
Mm-hmm.
insect farmers have a way to buffer against that.
Yeah, it's really about creating a more predictable and stable environment.
So instead of constantly like reacting to
Mm-hmm.
the whims of nature, they can focus on optimizing other aspects of their
Yeah, okay.
operation.
Yep.
But isn't there a risk of becoming too reliant on technology?
That's a good question.
You know, does this level of control create a system that's too artificial,
Yeah.
too fragile?
Well, it's like a balancing act.
Okay.
You're trying to find that sweet spot
Yeah.
between leveraging technology
Mm-hmm.
and respecting natural processes. And the source does mention that researchers are looking into the impacts of long-term climate control on these insect populations.
So, like, what are they concerned about?
Well, like if you're raising generations of insects in this perfectly controlled environment, could that lead to like a decrease in genetic diversity?
Interesting.
Or adaptability?
So those are all questions that are still kind of up in the air.
Yeah, definitely.
I hadn't considered that. It seems like with any new technology, there are always these unforeseen consequences.
It's true.
Shifting gears a bit.
Okay.
The source also talked about renewable energy in these systems. Can you expand on that?
Absolutely.
So,
like we talked about earlier, energy consumption is a key consideration for climate-controlled insect farms. And the source highlights how many farms are now integrating solar panels, wind turbines, other renewable energy sources to power their operations.
It's kind of like a two birds, one stone situation.
Exactly.
You reduce the environmental impact, but you also make the farms more resilient to energy price fluctuations.
Exactly.
Which can be a huge concern for farmers.
Yeah, they can.
That's amazing. It sounds like there's a lot of innovation happening, not just in terms of the climate control itself, but in how it's powered as well.
Oh, for sure. And there's this one example that really caught my eye. The source describes this pilot project where an insect farm is using the excess heat generated by the insects to power their climate control system.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like this closed loop system.
So they're using the insect's own metabolism to make the operation more efficient.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
It's just pretty cool. It's like nature is providing its own solutions. We just have to learn how to harness them.
And it's like we're seeing that across so many different fields right now.
As a trend,
That's what I think makes this field so exciting. It's like this intersection of biology, technology, sustainability. There's just so much potential.
There is a lot of potential for innovation.
And creative problem solving.
Absolutely.
I'm also curious about the economic side of this. You know, in the last part, we touched on the initial investment cost of setting up one of these farms.
Right.
But the source also mentioned that these systems can help increase profitability.
So how did that work?
Yeah.
Well, by creating this stable and predictable environment, climate control allows farmers to increase their yields, produce higher quality insects more consistently.
So it's not just about producing more, it's about producing more efficiently.
Exactly, and reducing waste. And as the demand for insect protein continues to grow, these efficiencies become even more critical. Because climate control can help ensure this steady and reliable supply of insect-based products, which is essential for building a thriving and sustainable industry.
You know, one thing that keeps coming back to me is this idea of like shifting perspective. You know, we're so used to thinking of insects as pests.
Yeah, we are.
But with this technology, we're starting to see them as this valuable resource, as a potential solution to some of our biggest challenges.
It really is a radical shift in thinking.
It is.
And we're starting to see that interconnectedness of everything. How even the smallest creatures can play such a vital role in creating a more sustainable future.
Absolutely. Speaking of shifting perspectives,
the
source also touched on something that I found really interesting.
What's that?
The potential of insect farming to address global food security concerns.
Yeah, that's huge.
So can you talk a bit about that?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest advantages of insect farming is its efficiency. Insects require significantly less land, water, and feed than traditional livestock to produce the same amount of protein.
So it's just a much more sustainable option for feeding a growing population.
Especially in regions where resources are scarce.
So it's not just about creating a more sustainable food system. It's about creating a more equitable one.
Exactly. Insects farming has the potential to empower communities, create economic opportunities, and improve food security in parts of the world where traditional agriculture is struggling.
It's pretty amazing to think that something as seemingly simple as like controlling the climate for these insects can have these far-reaching implications. We've talked a lot about the positive aspects of this technology.
We have.
But I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier. This potential for unintended consequences.
Yeah, that's important.
Are there any other concerns that have been raised in the research?
Well, one area that researchers are really paying attention to is the potential impact of large-scale insect farming on biodiversity. So if it's not managed carefully, there's a risk that certain insect species could become dominant
Okay.
and potentially outcompete native species
Oh, wow.
in the surrounding environment.
That's a great point.
Yeah, it's really crucial that we implement these safeguards and best practices to make sure that insect farming doesn't harm biodiversity.
Right. It reminds us that even with the best intentions, it's important to proceed with caution and really consider the potential impacts of any large-scale agricultural practice.
Absolutely. We need to take this holistic approach, thinking about the benefits, but also the potential risks and how we can mitigate them.
Well said. I think we've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive.
Yeah, we've explored a lot.
You know, we've looked at the economic and environmental benefits of climate-controlled insect farming.
Right.
We talked about its potential role in addressing global food security and the importance of considering these unintended consequences.
Absolutely.
But we still have one more key piece of the puzzle to explore.
We do.
So in the next and final part of our deep dive, we're going to take a closer look at ManaMind technology.
Sounds good.
We'll explore its unique features, how it's being used in the field, and its potential for shaping the future of insect farming. We'll also touch on the broader trends and innovations shaping the insect protein industry as a whole.
Great.
So stay tuned for the exciting conclusion
to
our deep dive into the fascinating world of insect farming climatization. All right, so welcome back to our final part of this deep dive.
It's been a good one.
It really has. We've covered so much ground, you know.
We have.
We talked about the science behind insect climatization, the potential benefits, the challenges,
the big picture,
even the bigger picture stuff like food security.
It's all connected.
It is, but now I kind of want to zoom in a little on a specific technology that we've been talking about. That's really making waves in this field.
Yeah. ManaMind?
ManaMind. It's really interesting.
Yeah, what is it about it?
Well, they're really tackling one of the biggest hurdles, I think, for a lot of insect farmers. That complexity.
Yeah.
And they've managed to make a system that's both sophisticated but also user-friendly.
That's key.
It is.
Because you can have the most amazing technology in the world. But if farmers can't use it,
it's useless.
It's not going to go anywhere.
Exactly. So how have they kind of addressed that?
Well, the source that we're looking at really highlights how ManaMind uses a very simple, intuitive interface that allows farmers to monitor and control everything.
So what kinds of things?
Like temperature, humidity, ventilation, lighting.
Wow. So all the key variables.
All from a central dashboard.
That's cool.
And they've even got AI-powered predictive analytics.
Oh, wow.
That can alert farmers to potential problems before they even happen.
So it's like having a virtual assistant for your insect farm.
Yeah.
That's amazing, but what really sets it apart?
I think one of the key things the source mentions is modularity.
Modularity.
Yeah, so it's not like a one-size-fits-all. It's designed to be adaptable. So you can have a small container farm or a large industrial operation. It doesn't matter. You can customize ManaMind to fit.
So it can kind of grow with your business.
Exactly. You don't have to invest in a whole new system.
As you scale up.
And it's compatible with a range of different insect species.
Oh, so you're not locked into
just one type.
That's really important.
Especially as the market changes.
Right, and consumer preferences change?
Exactly.
What about real-world examples?
Oh, yeah, there's some good ones.
Are there farms that are using this successfully?
Yeah, and they're seeing good results.
Like what?
Well, the source highlights a farm in Southeast Asia that increased their black soldier fly larvae production by over 30%.
Wow.
After implementing ManaMind.
So not only are they producing more,
they saw a decrease in losses.
Oh, wow.
From disease and temperature fluctuations.
That's huge.
It is.
So it's really delivering on its promise.
Yeah, I think so.
What about the bigger picture? Where do you see this technology going?
I think ManaMind is a great example of how technology can be a force for good.
In what way?
By making climate control more accessible.
Yeah.
Affordable. Easy to use.
It's removing those barriers.
It is.
To entry for a lot of people.
Especially smaller operations and those in developing countries.
Right.
So that could lead to more people embracing insect farming.
Yeah.
As a sustainable livelihood.
It feels like we're at this tipping point.
It does.
Where the demand is growing. Yeah. The technology is getting there.
It's maturing.
And consumer perceptions are shifting.
We're on the cusp of something big.
Yeah. It feels like a real food revolution.
It's not just about the food, though.
Right.
It's about rethinking our whole relationship with nature.
Yeah.
How we produce what we need.
And insect farming offers that model.
That circular regenerative model.
It's pretty inspiring to think.
It is.
That something as small as an insect can be part of this big transformation.
We've come a long way in this deep dive.
We have.
We started with the basics.
Yeah.
So we're talking about feeding the world.
It's amazing how controlling the climate for these little creatures can lead to such huge possibilities.
It speaks to the power of curiosity and really digging deep.
That's what we're all about here on the Deep Dive.
Taking you beyond the headlines.
Into these fascinating topics.
The ideas, the innovations, the people behind it all.
So if you're interested in learning more, there's a wealth of information out there.
Keep exploring.
The role of technology.
It's all out there.
Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep those minds curious and stay hungry for knowledge.